One more. Who built the Tower of London? Was it A, William the Conqueror, B, Queen Victoria, C, Queen Elizabeth I, or D, Oliver Cromwell?
I'm going to say William the Conqueror, because he's built lots of stuff.
Ooh, OK. Let us know at home what you think. It's not as easy as you might think. The headlines
What did the Romans ever do for us? Mint coins? Obviously not.
The headlines are all, oh, Prince Harry doesn't know his own citizen, questions, but a lot of us don't. So let us know if you find that easy or not, and I'll let you know later on some of the answers. But let's turn our attention to another big story this morning.
Yeah, it's 6:15. Rishi Sunak insisting yesterday that the UK will always be a compassionate, welcoming country, despite his Home Secretary describing the recent influx of migrants as an invasion in the House of Commons.
Well, here with us is Holly Whitbread, Conservative councillor for Epping and Thaydon. And joining us remotely is the social policy analyst, Dr Rakib Ehsan. Good morning to both of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with you, Holly Whitbread, because for many in the party, Suella Braverman is a champion. She is defending the public purse, trying to save money, and is tackling what everyone has to acknowledge is a huge problem at the moment. The pressure on her, though, I suppose, is only going to grow as we see some of the conditions inside these centres. What's your view on some of the language, the rhetoric, the challenges that she's addressing?
I think it's a huge challenge. I mean, we've been talking about it for some years now, the real challenge of illegal immigration. And I think what is really important as a compassionate country is that when these people do come in, we process them in a quick way, actually, because we need to, if people aren't, they don't have the right to be in this country, it's important they go through that process quickly. I mean,
how quickly can you do that realistically if you have to legitimately check out where somebody's from, their right to asylum, their paperwork, which often isn't?
Well, I think they normally say about a week is about the amount of time that someone would be expected to be in a kind of processing centre. Obviously, what we've seen over recent years is the use of hotels across the country. And I think Suella is right to identify that that is not necessarily a cost-effective way of dealing with these people. So I think she's right to identify the challenges, but obviously it needs to be dealt with in a sensitive manner.
And do you think that she's dealt with it in a sensitive manner by using the word invasion?
I mean, it's probably not language that I would use, but I think it does show the extent of the issue. I mean, and for people living on the south coast of England, there are thousands sometimes of people a day coming into our country literally onto our shores. So she's kind of used that phrase to kind of express the level of the issue, which is a huge concern, actually. If you go out into the streets and ask people what they think, it's a huge concern.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, yeah. Have you, speaking to constituents, have they said to you, yeah, we would use the term invasion?
I don't necessarily hear that word, but I do hear concerns about illegal immigration. Yeah. I think most people in the country, and certainly where I come from, is you want fair immigration. You want people doing the jobs that we need. And actually, illegal immigration isn't fair on people like that. So it's making sure that we've got the right people coming into the country, and refugees, because, we are a compassionate nation. We've seen it with Ukraine and Afghanistan. So there is we certainly want to welcome people if it's necessary.
Yeah. Well, look, let's bring in Dr Ehsan at this point. We heard the Prime Minister, I suppose, sort of kind of trying to retreat from some of the language that his Home Secretary was using by saying we are a compassionate country. Do you think we are? I mean, Sir Roger Gale, whose constituency is where the firebomb attack happened, has said that the problems have really escalated in the last 5 weeks since Suella Braverman has been Home Secretary. Has she changed? Have her policies directly changed our compassion as a nation?
Well, Isabel, I would say that on the whole, we are very much a passionate country, and we do have a rich tradition when it comes to rehoming the world's most persecuted peoples. Under the Conservative government, there have been bespoke resettlement routes set up for Syrian citizens, Afghans who are at risk of Taliban-led persecution, and Hong Kongers who would like to escape from Chinese state tyranny. I think that in this particular situation, looking at the English South Coast, it is experiencing what I'd consider to be industrial scale illegal immigration. Now, we can talk about whether or not the term used by the Home Secretary, invasion, is appropriate or inappropriate. What was really interesting is that the YouGov poll showed that over 3 in 4 Conservative voters from the last general election felt that the use of the word was appropriate. If you look at the broader general population, 43% believed it was appropriate, 44% felt it was inappropriate. So you can say that it's very much polarizing language. But I feel that much of the problem is that people are focusing on the language of the Home Secretary, but not really providing solutions in terms of helping the country foster a well-structured immigration system and a well-ordered asylum regime.
Well, we'll talk about the solutions, if you will, in a second, but I just want to follow up on that because I screenshotted a tweet I saw last night. The word invasion demonises asylum seekers, creates a culture of hatred and division that leads to people believing they can firebomb an enemy. This violent rhetoric is the problem. You have blood on your hands for using this. And I just wonder, do you think that you can just dismiss the language as being semantics when we've had such a violent act in the last few days? Do you think they are linked?
Well, I think that she, in terms of the incident at the migrant processing centre, that is currently being investigated by counter-terrorism police. But I think if you're talking about the risk of far-right extremism, that's more down to the fact that we've been experiencing industrial-scale illegal immigration for most of the year. And that is taking place in the middle of a cost of living crisis where the UK government is spending millions of pounds a day on accommodating what are considered to be illegal migrants in hotels. So I think that, of course, we can have a discussion about the language used by the Home Secretary, but there's a fundamental problem here in terms of our border security, which has been there for some time.